Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our presentation on the mission and goals of the Woodstock Housing Alliance. We're a nonprofit formed last year devoted to developing affordable housing in our town. Tonight's agenda includes an introduction to our board of directors, and then we're going to be speaking about, as I said, the mission and goals and plans of the Housing Alliance. How you can help, we will talk about later. And we're going to mute everybody so that you can put your questions in the chat and we'll be addressing them all at the end of the briefing. It's a rather brief briefing, I'd say 30 minutes to 40 minutes at the most. So we're going to start out by meeting the board. I'm Susan Manuel, the secretary, and I moved here about 10 years ago when I bought a house that I couldn't buy now because the value went up and mine didn't. But I retired from an international career with the UN and I wanted to get involved in my new community. Started out with noticing the problem of housing through the immigrants some of us were helping. And then I realized it's an issue affecting so many people. Last year, 2 leading artists in the community who were friends left because their rental ran out and they couldn't afford to buy a house. Then I had these beloved neighbors, these little boys. They also left because there weren't enough children in town to form competitive sport teams. So that's why I'm excited about the Woodstock Housing Alliance and why I think it's so necessary. And now I'll turn over to our director, Kirk Ritchie.
Thanks, Susan. My name is Kirk Ritchie. I'm the founder and executive director of Woodstock Housing Alliance. And I've been involved with housing in Woodstock since I started volunteering for the town back in 2016, soon after my retirement. Previously, my work was involved with project management and leadership roles with the digital, or you might say the information technology industry. That's what it used to be called. And now it's more called the digital technology. And so I did that for 20 years. And prior to that, I was a project manager for infrastructure in Manhattan for bridge work and other major infrastructure projects. But really my interest now, it has been and is in housing. I'm very excited about Woodstock Housing Alliance and being a means through which we can address the issues of housing in our town and in the surrounding towns. And I'm really looking forward to the growth of our organization. And so Judith, you're next.
Hi, I'm Judy Kerman. I've served on the planning board for multiple terms. I joined fairly soon after I moved here 12 years ago, and I'm now the vice chair. But before that, I was a university professor, and before that, I was a university administrator, rising to associate vice president for academic affairs and dean of arts and behavioral sciences. I served on the Bay City, Michigan Architectural Review Committee and also on the board of the Saginaw Art Museum. So I've been around a bit of small nonprofits, and I think the question of housing in Woodstock is a critical one. I see it all the time in the planning board work and in the work that I've done on the new zoning law, which Kirk spearheaded, and I'm very excited to be part of this organization. I'm serving as treasurer. And now Jeff Collins.
Hi, I'm Jeff Collins. My background is in technology. I left that career in about 2001 when my wife and I were the initial founders of the Hudson Valley Secondary School, which is a nonprofit K-12 school. I worked there until 2016, and I've been involved in politics and volunteering for the town since then. As a volunteer for the town, I've worked I was on the zoning board for a while, and I've worked with committees, the Housing Oversight Task Force that's helping to change our zoning from exclusive to inclusive. And I'm also a board member of the family of Woodstock. As a board member there, I've seen how much housing and how much homelessness has impacted this county and impacted what's happening in this county. So I feel like one of the most important issues that we have to deal with is housing in the area. And I'm working on that and believe that's something that really need to get done.
We also have an advisory board of 14 members. These include bank executives, experts in governance and compliance, a key business leader, 3 lawyers with portfolios in finance, land use, and estate planning, architects, designers, builders of energy, and cost-efficient housing. We do need a social media expert. If anyone knows of anyone in that field, please let us know. Judith will take over from here. Thank you.
It's important to understand why Woodstock Housing Alliance is such an important new player in the nonprofit and in the housing area in Woodstock. Woodstock has become unaffordable for many of the people who work here, people who would like to move here, artists who are not famous enough to be major income earners from their art, and employees of our local town, of our businesses who can't afford to live where they work. Seniors are also in this category because sometimes people need to downsize and there's nothing they can afford to buy. So they have a house that's more than they really can handle and no options if they want to stay in the community. We are also facing the risk of our public school being closed for lack of kids, and a great deal of difficulty recruiting volunteers, not just for positions like town boards, but also for essential services like the fire department and the emergency services. Those are all things that are run by volunteers in a town like this, and you have to have, I don't mean necessarily very young people, but younger people than many of us are now. You have to have new people coming in, and they are not usually wealthy people. They have to be able to afford to live here. So for that reason, for seniors, young people, all of the people listed in the left-hand column, we need to develop as a town rentals and buildings that fit the income levels of the people who we want to serve, and also that fit the scale of our town. We are not talking about big apartment houses, what people think of as public housing. That is not our agenda. Small scale, things that to the eye look like private homes, well sited in the land. And for people who are going to live here year round. We have a lot of people who come up in the summer and their houses may be empty for half the year. So lower income, middle income, year round residents are at a premium in terms of what the town needs, and they cannot find housing. Next slide, please. So affordable housing in our region has particular characteristics. You can see a drawing on the left, which is one of our architectural renderings of the kind of thing that we anticipate building. We retain the unique rural features of our region. We want that to be continued. We want to attract and retain a diverse community. We are less diverse, certainly in terms of ages and in terms of income levels, than we probably were 20 or 30 years ago because of the cost of housing. We need that people who are currently living here and they get a big rent increase at the end of a lease, and they are often forced to move. I have personal friends who are in that situation, and I think all of us do. We need housing security. When somebody lives in a rental and they don't know if they're going to be able to afford the place when the rent comes up or the lease comes up, they do not have security. They can't settle in to building relationships and building a career and building a life in this town and know that they're going to be able to continue. And that's particularly true for local workers. They may work in a restaurant, they may work in a retail establishment, and they don't know. Or they may work for a nonprofit. There are lots of nonprofits that also, they are not paying top dollar because they can't. We want people with families to be able to afford to live here. And younger people with kids are more and more unable to afford housing everywhere, but we need them here. For schools, for businesses, we need them here. And what we want to build as an organization is housing that is economically sustainable, that people can afford to live in, that can be managed in the long term to be affordable. And at the same time, retain the kind of environment that we have all come to love, and it's a major reason why a lot of us are here. Now, there are a lot of organizations and different levels of organization that are currently working on this. So what we've done here is clustered on this slide the three different major kinds of groups that are working. Government agencies, obviously the Woodstock Town Board, and there have been initiatives from the town board that have made the work possible and have carried it forward. The Woodstock Housing Committee, which is a committee of the town of volunteers, is another of those activities. That's an ongoing thing. The Housing Oversight Task Force, on which 3 of us have served, is wrapping up the work on a major zoning improvement that will make it easier to build small and to build small multiple units than it has been under the old zoning. Program initiatives are carried out by a number of different levels of organization, and some of them public and some of them nonprofit. The Ulster County Smart Communities is in partnership with Woodstock. Woodstock Family, which is a very famous and venerable nonprofit organization, is doing Home Share, which is a program for people who want and need someone to share space with them, probably semi-private space. And in connection with that, the development of accessory dwelling units. That's what ADUs are. Accessory dwelling units. We have the right to build them on our properties now, but it's not being done actively, and it's not being done particularly with affordable housing in mind. So Woodstock Housing Alliance and the families of Woodstock are cooperating on the planning of ADU development that will be aimed at affordable housing. In regard to that, the American Rescue Plan funds, which the town received, a portion of those funds has been voted by the town board to manage an affordable loan program to build ADUs that will be maintained as affordable housing. And the Woodstock Housing Alliance's first major initiative, in fact, is to develop that loan program and administer it. Among the nonprofit organizations, in addition to us, because we are a 501c3, Family of Woodstock, RUPCO, which built the Woodstock Commons, and a very successful, but much larger scale than what we would intend to do, and Habitat for Humanity, which is around and is undoubtedly going to bid on some of the properties that we may also bid on. Next slide, please.
One of the projects we're working on is to partner with the town of Woodstock to create affordable accessory dwelling units. Partner with the town of Woodstock to create affordable accessory dwelling units. Taking money that was given to the town program in order to, in the loan program, promote more affordable money that was given to the town American Rescue Plan. And as you can see in the slide, affordable housing, money starts from the American Rescue Plan, which sent money to Woodstock. And as you can see in the slide, town board received those funds, American Rescue Plan, which sent money to Woodstock housing. The Woodstock town board received those funds and committed $400,000, $175,000 of that $400,000 program for homeowners. The town board approved $175,000 for the affordable ADU nonprofit for homeowners to get to the homeowners. So money must go to a Woodstock Housing Alliance to get to the homeowners. So that the town board approved Woodstock Housing Alliance. What we'll do with that program agency to manage that unit with the Woodstock. What we'll do with that program is work to collaborate with Home Share and also the accessible ADU program to collaborate with Home Share and also the accessible ADU program. 8 homeowners will award approximately $20,000 to build an accessible ADU. 8 homeowners ADU is an accessory dwelling unit to build an accessible ADU. Deed restricted to be affordable. An accessible ADU is an accessory dwelling unit throughout its, which is deed restricted to be throughout the entire span of its history. Affordable, those homeowners will rent those throughout the entire span of its history. Those homeowners will then rent help pay off the loans. Affordable ADUs. That money will come back to the Woodstock Housing Alliance, which will regenerate that and be able that money will come back to issue the Woodstock Housing Alliance, which will regenerate that. Through this plan, be able to have continued to issue affordable ADUs time, and then over time, through this plan, we will have 2 affordable ADUs per year going on, and then over time, an additional, we believe, 2 affordable ADUs per year going on into the future. So that's one issue. One thing that we're doing is affordable ADUs. But we're also doing more things too. So that's one issue. One thing that we're doing is affordable ADUs. But we're also
that will
doing more
create
things
and
too. So
steward
what we
affordable
are
housing
is a
throughout
community-led
Woodstock area,
housing
not just with
program
ADUs, but with other
that
things
will
too.
create and steward affordable housing throughout
Organized
Woodstock
legally
area,
as a
not just with
community
ADUs, but
land
with other
trust,
things too, which is a nonprofit
organized
501c3.
legally as a
With the
community
mission of
land trust,
developing land,
which
which
is
is
a
a
nonprofit
nonprofit
and that
501c3.
development will then
With
allow
the
us to
mission of
manage
developing
rental
land and
properties
homes
and ownership
and that development
on those
will
on
then
that
allow us to
land and those
manage
homes
rental
for community
properties and
members.
ownership
We were
on
forming
those
on that
2022
land
just
and those
last year.
homes
We
for
were modeled
community
after
members.
several successful
We
community
were
land
forming
trusts across the United
2022 just
States.
last year.
We were modeled
Next
after
slide, please.
several successful community land
So
trusts
what
across
we're
the United
not is
States.
we're not a provider of Section 8
Next
housing.
slide, please. We're not a lender, we're not a
So
bank, we're not a
what we're
finance
not is we're not a
source
provider of Section 8 housing
or constructor
we're
or
not a
builder.
lender,
We're
we're
not a
not a
bank
government
entity or a
source,
for-profit organization and
or
we're not a land
constructor or
conservancy.
builder.
We're not a
So what we
government
really
entity
do, next slide,
or a
please,
for-profit organization and we're not a land conservancy.
is
So what we really
work
do
to
next slide,
create
please, affordable housing through community
is
land trust. And the way community
work
land trust
to
works,
create
affordable
is
housing,
they
through
own
community land trust. And the way
the
community
land,
land
the
trust
houses
works
built
on
is
they
they own
rent or sell the buildings
the
themselves
land,
to
the houses are
qualified
built
buyers.
on.
And
This
they
separation
rent or
of the
sell
buildings from the
themselves
land
to qualified
allows
buyers.
us to
This
ensure that the
separation
buildings
of the buildings
themselves
from the land
are either at
allows
affordable
us
rents
to or
ensure
affordable
that
sale
the
prices
buildings
throughout time.
themselves are
That separation is
affordable
really
rents
important in this,
or
and that's
affordable sale
the kind
prices
of the hallmark
throughout
of
time.
community land.
That
Separation is
trust.
really important in this, and that's the
Another
kind of the
feature of
hallmark
this is
of
that we
community
do
land-
not take
community land
property
trust.
off the tax rolls.
Another
Those
feature of
properties
this
are
is
always
that we do
paying
not
taxes,
take property
and that tax
off the
is
tax
used
rolls.
to support
Those
our fire
properties are
departments,
always
our
paying
schools,
taxes,
our libraries,
and that
and other
tax
parts,
is
other
used to support our
functions of the
departments,
town.
our schools, our libraries, and other parts, other next slide, please. Functions of the town.
Kurt,
Take this.
Thank you,
Next
Jeff.
slide- next
Thank
slide,
you very
please.
much.
Kurt,
Yeah, so one of the
take
things that we
this.
wanted to speak about.
Thank you,
to-
Jeff.
Thank you very much.
This at this moment.
So
is
one
to
of the things that we
talk
wanted
about
to speak about,
how does the work
at
this
the
moment is
community
to
land trust
talk about
how is it
how
sustained?
does the work
And
of
what are the elements
community
so
land trust
necessary for
how
this
is it
organization
sustained?
such as ours?
And what are the elements
necessary
to
for
grow
this
and to
organization
continue to serve
such as
community's
ours?
needs?
The cornerstone of this
to
is
grow
is
and to
first
continue to serve
name,
our
a
community's
word in
needs.
the community land trust, and
The
that is
cornerstone of
the
this
involvement
is
the first. The community's
name-
understanding
word
of
in
the
the
community land
importance
trust
of
and
an
that is the
organization
involvement
such
of
as
the
ours
community is one where
community's
the
understanding of the
recognition
importance
that
of
what
an
we are
organization
actually
such as ours
striving to
is
create
one where
housing that
will remain
recognition that
affordable
what we are
in
actually
perpetuity.
striving to
So
create.
essentially what we're doing is we're
housing that
building
will
a-
remain
a-
affordable,
in
housing available
perpetuity.
for
So
ongoing
essentially what
needs
we're
of
doing
our-
is we're
of our
building
town,
for
middle income
housing
people,
available
for lower
for
income people,
ongoing
for
needs
seniors,
of our
and the people
town,
in the groups that
for
we talked
middle
about,
income
that Judith
people,
mentioned
for
earlier,
lower income people, for
families,
seniors,
young
families,
and the
such.
people in the groups that
So
we
the
talked
deed
about, that
restrictions
Judith
are
mentioned
on
earlier.
the say
Families, young
on
families,
the
and
properties.
such.
So the deed
enable
restrictions are
that
on the
property to
on the
remain
properties
affordable and
enable
enable that
the meaning that
property to remain
it doesn't
affordable
if it
sometimes in
perpetuity.
our market
The
housing
meaning that
is affordable at one point and
it
then the
doesn't
market
if it-
changes
sometimes
and
in
those
our
homes
market
are no longer
the
affordable.
housing
with
is
property
affordable
that
at one
is
point and then the
managed and
market
owned by,
changes and those homes are
Woodstock
no
Housing
longer
Alliance.
affordable.
Those
With
properties will
property that
remain
is
affordable.
managed and owned by
And the property taxes, as
Woodstock
Jeff
Housing
mentioned,
Alliance,
are paid.
those properties will remain
We pay
affordable.
the property taxes,
And
as
the
an
property taxes,
organization,
as
and
Jeff
and the
mentioned,
buildings
are paid by
we pay the
occupants
property taxes
of
as
if
the
they own the
organization,
building.
and
If we
the
sell
and the
that
buildings.
property, are
If
paid
they're
by the
rented, then we
occupants
would also
of the-
pay
if
the
they own
property
the building, if we
taxes
sell
from
that
those people.
property.
If they're rented,
so
then we would
the-
also pay
one of the other
things it does is that we will have
engagements with
local
financial institutions.
One of the
So
other
we're
things it does is that we
establishing,
will have engagements,
if you
with
will,
local
relationship
financial
with,
institutions.
the ability
so we're
to
establishing
have,
economy,
if you will,
local banks are
relationship
supported.
with,
We
the
engage
ability
with
to
them. They
have support the
economy.
people who are on the
Local banks are
properties of which
supported.
we own.
We
And so
engage
there's
with
this-
them.
there's this,
They
whole,
support the people who
um,
are on the
economic
properties of
element
which we
that
own.
strengthens,
And so there's this
our local
whole
economy by us being
economic
involved.
element. And the other
that
aspect
strengthens
of
our
the sustainability
local
of an
economy by
organization
us being involved.
is our ongoing
And the other aspect of
education and
the
participation
sustainability of an organization
with the community
is our ongoing
to help education,
for instance, to help
participation
people save money
with
to
the
buy a
community
if they're
to
renting
help
initially.
For instance, to help people save money to buy a home,
ways in which to
if
do
they're
that,
renting
or
initially,
to
help
help them
help people understand
ways in which to
what
do
it
that,
means
or
to
to
be a
help
homeowner.
of the property.
And
the
people understand
responsibilities of that.
what it
To help
means
people
to
gain
be an
access to
owner
that.
So it's
of
a
the property.
stewardship, if you
And the
will,
responsibilities
to help people
that we
gain
will
access to
also
that. So it's a
provide
stewardship,
services
if
of
you will,
education
of
encourage people to participate
that we
with our
will
programs.
also provide
the services of
the other thing
education
that is important
encourage
to
people
understand is
participate
that,
with our programs.
what are the benefits? The other
of an
thing that,
organization
that
such as
is
ours.
important to
And
understand,
obviously,
is that, the main one,
what
is
are the
that we will
benefits
increase
of an
availability of
organization
affordable
such as
rentals.
ours?
And
housing.
obviously,
Our focus
the
initially
main
won't be
one
on
is that
rentals.
we
We
will
will
increase
eventually be
availability of
building
affordable rentals
for purchase.
and housing.
Our focus initially will be on
our
rentals.
focus
We
will
because our
eventually
town
be
really
building
seriously
for
needs
purchase.
rental.
But I think
development
our focus
that's
because our
affordable.
town really
So that
seriously needs
we will
rental.
be increasing that inventory
Development
that's affordable.
Judith
So that
mentioned earlier, and
we
I think
will
this
be
is one of
increasing
the
that inventory.
essential
elements of the benefits
Judith mentioned
is
earlier, and
when
I think
we
this
have
is one of the
residents in our town that
essential
have housing
elements
security
of the
and
benefits
housing certainty
is
another way
when
of
we have
saying it.
residents in our town,
They
that have
become
housing
more active
security.
participants
And
in
housing
our
certainty
community.
is another way of
They're no
saying
longer
it.
concerned month
They
to month
become
of
more
whether or not
active
they're going to be able to pay their
participants
rent.
in our
And the
community.
majority of their
They're no
income
longer
going to
concerned month
things
to
of that
month of
nature.
whether or not they're going to be able to pay
So
their
they're
rent.
and
they
the majority
become
of their income
healthier
going to
because
things
they
of
can
that
afford
nature.
other things, and they're
So they're
the housing
they
security
become
creates
healthier,
if you will,
and
because
mental
they can
health.
afford other things, and
where
the
people
housing
become
security creates
more
if
stable
you will,
and
mental health,
more
just more
that
participating,
where people become
participating
more
in the community.
stable and
More the
just more
permanency
participating.
of our
Participating in the community.
housing also
will enable
the
moderate
permanency
income
of
homeowners to
our
purchase.
so that
housing
is something that
also
we have
will
a
enable
long-term
moderate
goal
income
of being able to do is
homeowners to
provide
purchase.
first-time
So
home buyers.
that
in
is
our
something
town,
that
which
we have a
there are
long-term
very
goal
few
of being able to do is
opportunities
provide
for that.
first-time home buyers in our town. which
And
there
to
are
again, I mentioned
few
already
opportunities for that.
the education of home buyers
and the benefits and
and to
responsibilities of
again,
home
I mentioned
ownership.
already, and
The
and
education
to
of
conserve
home
and
buyers
manage
and
the
the
land
benefits
and
and
the benefit of the
responsibilities of
entire
home ownership.
community. That
And,
speaks. That goes back
to
conserve and
having
manage the land and the
that's,
benefit of the entire
for
community.
housing
That
on
goes
an
back
ongoing
to
way,
having
a way that
land
serves the
that's,
needs of our community.
for housing.
So it's a
on an
way in
ongoing
which
way,
a way that
putting
serves the
land
needs of
to
our
the use
community.
of the benefits.
So
of
it's
our
a
community. way in
those
which
are the way I
putting
view
land to the
housing on.
use of
And
the
again,
benefits of our
to Judith's
community.
point earlier,
All the pictures you're
the way
seeing
I
on these
view
slides
housing
are
wise.
representing
And again,
the models
to
that
Judith's
we have
point earlier,
ready to
all the
build,
pictures you're
seeing
in
on
our
these
town
slides, and
are
those models
representing
also
the models that
include
we have
ready to
plans
build
in
floor
our
plans and
town.
such.
But
And those models
optimized
also
kitchens and optimized
include,
bathrooms for
plans,
for,
floor plans and such,
so
so
that
that
optimized
kitchens
again,
and optimized
we're
bathrooms
thinking about
someone
for,
living in our buildings
for
so that
the long term.
again, and
we're
optimizing
thinking about
the efficiency of
someone
those
living in our
buildings.
buildings for the long term and optimizing the efficiency of those buildings.
So one of the things I wanted to mention here in this slide is that I think it's often important. So one of the things I wanted to mention here in this slide is that
land trusts exist. And here's
I
an
think it's
example
often
of one that's been
important
around
to understand
for 17
what
years.
other
They
community
started
land
in,
trusts exist.
2006.
And here's an example of
And
one
they're
that's
in
been
Martha's
around
Vineyard
for
where there's been a
17
need
years.
for
They
affordable
started
housing
in
for many, many years.
2006.
And
And
their
their
mission
mission
is
is
very similar to
where
ours,
there's been a
is to
need for
create
affordable
affordable
housing
housing
for
for
many, many
affordable
years.
housing.
And
for
their mission
year-
is very
year-long-
similar to
year-round
ours, is to
residents.
create and sustain
And
permanent
they
affordable
also
housing.
have
Created
for
quite a
year-
few.
year-long-
They have
year-round
71
residents.
homes,
And
they
of ownership
also
that they've
have
sold,
created
for
quite a few.
first-time home
They have
buyers,
71
and
homes,
55
of
rentals.
ownership that
I
they've
think they
sold,
have the need
for
first-time
purchasing
home buyers
more than they
and 55 rentals.
than rentals. But
I think they have the need for
fulfill the need
purchasing
for
more
more
than
than
they
in their community.
than
They
rentals, but
recently
they're starting to really
entered
fulfill
into
the need for rentals as well.
a
In
program
their
where they
community.
renovated
recently
an old
entered
Victorian
into
a hotel
program where
into
they
a renovated
shared
housing
an old Victorian
environment for the
hotel
employees
into
of
a hospital
shared housing
in their community
environment for
and they have
the
plans.
employees
They have
of the
plans to
hospital.
build 25 homes in their community
Each year,
and they
in
have
the coming
plans.
years.
They have
The other thing I wanted to
plans
point out
build
to
25 homes
on this slide
is
is
look
look
at the
people who
in
are
coming
living
years in
the other
these
thing I wanted to
homes
point out to
that have
on
purchased
this
them
slide
or renting
is
them.
look at the people who
You
are
know,
living
trades
in
homes,
skilled
that
trades
have
people,
purchased them
architects and
or renting
designers,
them.
healthcare providers, trade
municipal
municipal
people,
school and
architects and
nonprofit
designers,
employees, healthcare providers,
small business owners and employees.
municipal
So
school
these are
and
these are
nonprofit
people that you
employees,
wouldn't necessarily think.
small business
and this
owners
goes back
and
to what Jeff was
employees.
saying.
So these
that we
are
do
people that
we're
you
not gonna
wouldn't
be doing
necessarily
Section
think,
8 housing.
and this goes back to
This
what
is
Jeff
middle
was saying,
class. that we
This is
do
middle-income
do-
people,
We're not going to be
right?
doing Section
That's who
8 housing.
we will be building.
This is middle class,
right?
This is
offering
middle-income
housing
people
for right?
people.
That's who
artists.
we are an
building.
artist community, and
Right.
in order for
And
that,
offering housing
our
for-
culture
for
of
people,
artistry to
artists.
continue.
We are an artist community, and
we
in
need
order
housing
for that,
for
our
people,
culture
the
of
for the
artistry to
creators.
continue.
And you know, so that's
we need
I think an
housing
important
for
element of
the
what
people, for the creators.
Woodstock
The Island Housing Trust has been
that's
able to
I think
do
an
is
important
provide
element
housing
of what
for the very people that make up
Woodstock,
the fabric of
the
our
Island
community,
Housing Trust has
not
been
just
able to
for the
do is
wealthy.
provide housing for the
So
very
this is an
people that
excellent
make up the
example of
fabric.
our
Anybody would like to
community,
find out more,
not just for the
you
wealthy.
can go to their website. And
So
they
this is
have
an excellent
a
example.
tremendous
If
amount.
anybody
Of,
would like to find out more
information available
you
on
can
their
go to their
website,
website,
including
they have a
tremendous
pictures of
amount
the
of
homes they've built.
information
And that'd be
available on their
great for
websites,
people to see.
including so one of
pictures
the
of
other
the
things that I
homes they've
wanted
built.
to
So that'd
speak
be
of
great for people to see.
towards the end of this our
So
conversation.
one of the other
evening
things that I wanted
is
to
that
speak of
how can
towards
people
the end
help?
of this our conversation.
And
this
obviously,
evening
we are a
is that
nonprofit organization, and
how can
we are
people
tax.
help?
And obviously, we are a
we
nonprofit
receive
organization.
donations that are
and,
tax deductible.
We are tax,
and we also
you
can receive
property
donations that are tax deductible
donated to us, and that
we
too
also
becomes a tax donation.
can receive
Tax-deductible
property
donation
donated
we offer,
to us, and that too becomes a
you can
tax
turn to your own estate
tax-deductible
planner,
donation.
or
we offer we have
you can turn to your own
refer you
estate
to,
planner, or
an estate planner.
we
Should
have
that be something you're
we can
considering
refer you
doing,
to and include us in your estate planner.
Should that be
whatever
something
that
you're
may
considering
mean for
doing,
you,
whatever's
and include us
however
in
that
your
looks.
estate plan.
It's
Whatever that
of
may
course,
mean for
your
you,
preferences.
whatever's,
however that
we
looks. It's
will also a
of
large
course,
part
your
of
preferences.
we
income coming
will
into
also
our organization once
a
we
large
start
part
building
is
our,
from the state and county
income
and
coming
private
into our
foundations
organization
through
once we
grants.
start building.
We have
is from
we
the
have
state
two grant
and
writers
county
that we
and
work
private
with.
foundations.
We
through
have a
grants.
schedule of
We
grants
have
available.
we
that
have
we've
two grant
done
writers
research
that
on
we work with
of the types
we have
of
a
grants that
schedule
we
of
would be
grants
applying for
available
once
that we've
done research on
site development
of the
and
types
other
of
types
grants
of
that we
grants
would be
available
applying
to
for
us.
once we
And so there'll be a tremendous
site
amount of effort
development
that we'll be making
and other
as
types
an
of grants
organization
available to
in the
us.
future.
And so there'll be a
writing
tremendous
grants
amount of
that will,
effort that we'll be making
support
as
the
an
projects that we-
organization
in the
And
future
then,
writing
you know,
grants that was
Susan earlier
support the
mentioned
projects that we
our
need.
advisory
And then,
board.
and these are people that volunteer. Their
Susan
skills
earlier
and
mentioned,
talents,
and there'll be
our
other
advisory
talents
board,
and skills as she
and these are
mentioned
people that
about
volunteer
social
their
media and things
skills
that we
and
would need.
talents. And there'll be
But
other
anybody who wants to
talents and
volunteer
skills
be
that she mentioned
interested in
about social
contributing
media
your
and things
time
that we would need
to us. But anybody who wants to
we would be-
volunteer,
we are-
be
we will
interested
be
in
and would be
contributing your
grateful,
time
to us.
And so,
we-
feel free
we
to
would
reach
be-
out to
we
us,
are-
and we
we
can see
will
whether
be
there
and
might
would
be
be a
grateful.
match.
And so, feel free to reach out to us,
volunteers
and
are
we can
something
see
that
whether
we
there
will
might be a match
be doing on an ongoing
basis. The thing that is important to understand
we will
that I'm trying to
doing on
convey
an
the
ongoing
importance of
basis.
this. The thing that is important to
is the-
understand, like
that
in
I'm trying to convey
1962,
the
when
importance of
the
this
last time the
is
town of
the-
Woodstock did a, like in 1962, when the
a
last
master
time
plan
the
prior to
town of Woodstock did
2008
a,
when we have the most recent comprehensive plan.
the thing that was
master
recognized is
plan
that there
prior
was
to
need for open
2008
space.
when we have the most recent
And so
comprehensive
as a
plan.
result of that,
The thing that was
Andy Lee
recognized is that
Field
there
came
was need
about,
for open
the
space.
Village Green came about.
And so as a
and
result
other
of
open
that,
space in our
Andy
town
Lee Field
became
became
available.
The Village
And
Green came about.
we take that for
and
granted
other
now.
open space
But that
in
was
our
something
town
that
became
open space
available.
became a commons
And
that we take that for
use.
granted now.
But that
And
was something
imagine
that open
what
space
it would be
became a
like
commons
to have
that
this
we
town have a
use
commons, and
of
imagine
housing.
what it would be like that people
to have
then
this town have a
use
commons
as they come into
of
this
housing.
town. They're young people
that
they
people
choose to
then
live here.
use
They want to
as
live
they
here.
come
They
into
want
this
to raise
town.
a family here,
They're
but
young
young
people.
single. They
So
choose
they
to
rent
live
a
here.
place. They
And
want
they
to live
find
here.
an affordable
They
house.
want to raise a family
that
here,
they
but
can
they're single.
purchase.
So they rent a
and they
place.
raise their
And
family.
they
find an affordable
and-
house, or the seniors
that they
that are
can-
here that they can
purchase.
downsize
And they
as
raise their
Judith mentioned,
family here.
and go into
or
a
the
place
seniors
that
that
is
are here
that allows
they
them
can
to
downsize
experience the
Judith mentioned,
walkability of our
and go into
village,
a
and
place
be
that
nearby
is
all of the
that
essentials
allows
that
them
they
to
need to purchase.
experience the
And so this is the
walkability
type
of
of housing
our
that we will
village
be
and being
building
nearby
over
all of the
time.
essentials
And
they
that
need to
becomes,
purchase.
and
a
so
part
this
of
is
our
the type of
commons.
housing
It's a
that we will
housing
be building
commons.
over time.
It's different than the
And that
open space
becomes
commons, a part of our
Woodstock
commons.
Land Conservancy
It's
is
a housing
another
commons.
organization.
It's
They've
different
focused
than
on
the open
building,
space commons.
developing. Woodstock Land
conservation of
Conservancy
open
is another
space in the
organization.
wilderness.
As a
They've focused
result,
building,
we as a community
developing
so those are two
conservation of open
examples
space
of
in
what
the
it's
wilderness.
like when
As a result,
the community
benefits
focuses
from that.
on.
So those are two
building
examples of
commons
what it's
in our
like
town
when
that
the
serves our
community
town.
focuses
And we're here
on
to
building
building
commons
for
in
housing
our town.
And so
that
those are the
serves our
reasons
town.
why people would
And we're
donate to
here
us.
to
Those are the
build the
reasons why
commons
we want to
for
build.
housing.
And hopefully,
And so
those are the reasons why people would donate to us. Those are the reasons. So with that, I'd just like to thank you all for taking time this evening to learn. So with that, I'd just like to thank you all for and hopefully taking time this evening to learn about create an interest in and ways in which you can engage with us as an organization, create an interest, and also please tell your friends ways in which you can engage with us as an organization. More. And also, the slide here is showing how ways in which you can be in touch with us. We have a website. Learning more. The slide here is showing how ways in which you can be in touch with us. We have a website. We have email. On that website, you can learn more about how to Woodstock Housing Alliance. We have email. You can reach out to me at media. Kirk. And we are Woodstock Housing Alliance. You can see that we are a charitable organization. We have a Facebook page for social media, and we are donations. You can see that we are. So with that, again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending and regarding your donations. Thank you for your attention.
We had a previous meeting with the same content recently, and we're attaching the questions and answers from that live meeting for your information. First one's from Joan Apter. The homeowner is responsible for repaying the loan with certain terms. Is that correct?
Yeah, the homeowner is the same as any other homeowner of a home. They would have a mortgage. They would have a relationship with their bank. That relationship would be, predicated on the homeowner being able to make those payments. One thing that's interesting about a relationship with a community land trust, such as Woodstock Housing Alliance, is that we are also one of the owners. We own the land. And so for sometimes when a homeowner gets in a little bit of a complication with their finances and they run into a problem, we're now a part of that conversation with that bank. We're aware of it. And what has been found is that people that own homes that are associated with community land trust or Woodstock Housing Alliance, they oftentimes there's a way of working together. The landowner and the property owner and the bank work together to make sure that the mortgage continues to be paid. So there's a lot of relationship there that happens with Woodstock Housing Alliance in regards to with home ownership. But it's typically the same relationship as one would expect in any other home purchase with a mortgage.
Kirk, I think she was asking about the affordable ADU program, and yes, any
Oh,
affordable
I'm
ADU
sorry.
program. That's fine.
No, I think both questions are covered by the first
absolutely.
one.
Okay.
The second one is more specifically about the loan program.
Okay.
So did that answer the question? Joan, can you give me a thumbs up? Was that something that you just show me your thumb and that was good? So we answered your question. If not, you can put a chat in. Well, not sure. It wasn't clear. So let me just or Jeff, maybe you would like to respond a little bit to the affordable ADU loan program, and just describe what that is for a homeowner.
So for a homeowner, they would prepare a proposal for the Woodstock Housing Alliance to evaluate and the town to evaluate. If that proposal were acceptable to the Woodstock Housing Alliance and the town, meaning it's the kind of ADU that we feel is appropriate for affordable ADUs, then they would be able to get a loan. That loan would come from the town essentially, but we would handle the transaction for that because the town can't directly do the loan. And then as so once the ADU is occupied, part of that rent would go toward paying back the loan to the town. And that money would then be able to be reused for another affordable ADU loan sometime in the future.
Great.
Okay, Angela had a number of questions. How will we select the 8 homeowners who will receive the 20,000 loans? And will there be restrictions imposed on those homeowners when they sell? Now, the 20,000 is about accessory dwelling units. So it is a particularly limited program. And as Jeff mentioned, people will apply. Now, Jeff, do you want to say more about how those would be selected?
Yeah, the criteria has not yet been determined. We're going to work with the town to determine the criteria for that. It's basically going to be based on need and based on we'll do probably a scoring based on the need of the homeowner, what they're going to build, how it's going to be available, where it is. We would like them to be more in town, walkable in town than probably out in the outskirts. Those kinds of things will go into that. I think that kind of addresses who it's going to go to. Again, it's a process we need to create with the town. We're not going to do this on our own. It's the town and Housing Alliance program that we're working together. Is there more to that question?
No, but there's a related question. Will there be restrictions imposed on those homeowners when they sell?
Yes, there will be restrictions when they sell.
And that has to do with the accessory dwelling units.
Yes.
Those accessory dwelling units that have received those loans will be restricted to being the separate question of the restrictions imposed on homeowners when we get to the point that we are building houses for sale. It's a separate question.
Yeah.
Right, totally separate.
Next question.
Just to be clear, the intention of the affordable ADU program is to ensure that those ADUs are always affordable into perpetuity, regardless of ownership and transfer of ownership.
Now, the next question is, how much money are we looking to raise? And the answer is as much as we can. Obviously,
Yeah.
buying land in Woodstock and building anywhere is expensive.
Yeah.
One of the possibilities, if somebody wishes to do so, is to bequeath the house or land upon the homeowner's death. Or if you're moving out of town and you're in a position where you can donate a house, that's also a possibility. It can be existing houses, it can be empty land.
Right.
So as much money as we can find a way to raise, we will need.
And I think onto that is that it will be ongoing. We will be here for many, many years, and we will go, we will be involved with multiple projects going forward, and each of those projects will require support from the community and also grants, as I mentioned before. And we'll be seeking to create tools with local institutions to enable for local investment that would go on for a specific project. So those are the kinds of things that we will also be working with that allow people to take their retirement money, if you will, and put it into a bond. We have a fixed rate of return over said years, and that bond would then support the project that we would build. So there's a lot of different possibilities that we'll be creating for people ways and for people to participate from a donations perspective going forward.
The question, is it possible to visit the Martha's Vineyard Island Housing Trust while the questioner is there in April?
Well, yeah, there isn't an office. They have a central office, but you could reach out to them directly on their website, which is islandhousingtrust.org, and find out from them if they would like to go. And they have multiple sites. Also on their website, if you go there, they have a wonderful media section where you can see many of their projects and the types of homes that they've built and such. And so that too you should look into that and become familiar with them in that way. But feel free, they're very generous. They love for people to find out more about them.
Question is it possible to share this presentation? I have to admit to having not remembered to turn on the recording right at the beginning, but what is missing is the talking through the slides, and we can do that and put it up as a video, so it will be. Yeah,
that's sad news that we didn't record it, but we'll find a way to fix it. And so when we do record it, the answer that Judith is alluding to, we will create a Woodstock Housing Alliance will have a YouTube channel, and we will place the recordings of things on that channel, and we'll let people know. We have an email list that you can receive newsletters from us, and so you'll be informed of things as they become available. You're welcome to go to our website and sign up for that email list. We promise not to send you too many to where you become burdened with it in your inbox, but we will keep you up to date as things unfold in that regard.
We were asked to explain the process and the supervision about financial oversight so that people understand this is not something that any member of the board or any member of the organization is going to be benefiting from. It will be a transparent process, but I don't know the details. Kirk, you know how Martha's Vineyard has done it.
Well, again, we have a donation policy on our site. It's at the bottom of the page. You can click on the donation policy. If you're talking about donations to Woodstock Housing Alliance. We also have a lot of compliance, and we have transparency through the 990 reports that we offer with the federal government. Those will be available to the public. So there's a lot of ways of finding out how we are managing our finances going forward, and you will have access to that information. When it comes to the program that we're doing for the town and our partnership with the town, which is one of the reasons why we proposed to do it, is because we wanted to be in partnership with the town. We feel like it was an important role that we could play. I don't know if anybody noticed that RUPCO is in partnership with Kingston to develop ADUs. It was just announced last week. So that's the kind of partnership we are seeking to have with our town. And the town will hold that money until the loans are approved. So we're not even really involved with managing that fund, that money. The town will have possession of it, that 175,000, and then those funds will then be awarded to an individual homeowner right away. So we're just facilitating that, and then there'll be a relationship between that homeowner and payment of that loan off, and then those funds become available for another homeowner going forward. So.
Would we talk about a little bit about home share for people who don't want to build an ADU, but they just want to know more about home share? That is being handled through Family of Woodstock. They are also going to be working with us on the ADU part of it, but you can have a home share without building an ADU.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the home share program, and you can find about, just like Judith was saying, is that Family of Woodstock site, and the people there. There's a volunteers that are managing the home share program, which is a wonderful program. It really is. It for people who really need the renters to be and to help them in whatever ways. And there's a whole vetting process between the homeowner and the people who rent. So that's a wonderful program that the housing committee proposed, and the Woodstock Family of Woodstock picked up, and they manage that now.
And they some of the American Rescue Plan money from
they received $35,000 this year from the American Rescue Plan to help seed that program, and so, you know, and Susan Goldman, who's here tonight, she's also one of the managers of that program, and along with some other volunteers. So it's a great program for those of homeowners that would be interested in finding out more, or renters for that matter, or looking for rent, to go to Family of Woodstock and tap into the information that's there from them.
I just want to add that there's I know there's been some thoughts or something that we're going to benefit somehow from this ARP money, and no board member will receive a penny of that money. None of that money is going to be used to pay any of us anything. We're all serving as volunteers for this. So rest assured, we're not self-dealing.
Yeah.
Question came in: would possible housing include renovating houses that have defaulted on property taxes? I would have to say absolutely. That's going to be something we're going to keep an eye on. When there are tax sales, that's a good opportunity for us to pick up property and then turn into affordable housing.
Yeah, and also, you know, house renovations, if there's a home that's donated to us, and we see that property is a property that would be really well suited for to be used in affordable housing with apartments and such, there would be renovations going on. But I think your question is specifically about houses in our town that have maybe fallen under hard times because of negligence of some sort, be it the owner unable to pay the taxes, or it's just it's not kept up. Either way, we're certainly interested in existing buildings and trying to make the best of them.
How would the loan program, this having to do with the ADU building, benefit a home share applicant? So we're not talking about the homeowner, we're talking about somebody who wants to live in a home share situation. Presumably, if there was a match made through family and the home needed some work done that the loan could help to make possible for that applicant to live in that house, that's one of the uses you could make for a loan.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, the benefit, excuse me, Jeff, the benefit is that the person who would be renting there would be benefited from living in the newly refurbished section of the house. And so, that's what the loan would be applied for, is to make that place suitable for you to live in as a renter. Jeff?
And I think that there's some times where where the home share is more appropriate for someone to have their own private space that they can go to, and that would be the ADU along with sharing the house. So it's you don't necessarily need to be in the same house with the home share. You can be in an ADU in the same property.
Or another example, I am not going to be applying for this money, but I have thought about doing home share. And there is a wing of my house that, with some work to put a kitchenette in and to separate the two spaces, could be shared with adequate privacy for both of us. That's the kind of thing that someone other than me might want to get a loan to do.
And Judith, you'll bookend that by saying again what you started saying. That
Yeah,
you're not,
I'm not going to be applying for this money. I do not qualify for it.
yeah,
I have too much resource to be applying for it. But
yes.
it's the kind of thing that I might do, and if I were not in a position to afford it myself, someone might, or someone in my position who could not afford to do it themselves could apply for a loan to do it.
Right. That's exactly what it's set up to do. And that's a collaboration between Woodstock Housing Alliance and family of Woodstock. And so once the town of Woodstock approved that we would manage this, we then started talking with family of Woodstock, and they were very excited about the possibility that some of their home share property owners could access this money as well. So it's a way of extending out to and finding collaboration with us. And I think my message of this is that we really are trying to create the kind of collaborations and partnerships with organizations, with businesses that further demonstrates our commitment to this town, that we're interested in being a major provider of affordable housing for those people who need affordable housing in order to stay in Woodstock.
Question comes in, what happens and who manages these houses if and when this program moves on? By this program, I assume the questioner is asking about the Woodstock Housing Alliance. We are not intending to build it short term. We are intending to build it long term.
Yeah, we're not a program. We're a nonprofit organization that will be here. I think we want to maybe use an example that's in our town right now. And if you're talking about the ADU program that we're, for ARC funds, then that's another matter. But Woodstock Housing Alliance is similar to that of Woodstock Land Conservancy, which is 37 years old. And so they're here. They're here. They're managing the land that they have taken and are now part of their portfolio to conserve. And it's the benefits of Woodstock Land Conservancy we're benefiting from that. We have access to that land. They have worked to conserve land of which we are still able to see, which is wilderness and open for us to benefit from being around. Woodstock Housing Alliance is similar in the same way, but our focus will be on housing. So there will be the benefits of our efforts that will allow housing to persist in our town, that will allow there to be senior housing, will allow there to be first-time home buyers, that will stay a first-time home buyer, because again, based on what Jeff alluded to, that property value will remain held down lower than the market because of the land is separated from that house. So it will force that property owner for that house to be affordable into the future, even though it may be resold. And then of course we're going to be focused on building apartments because Woodstock needs rentals. Woodstock needs rentals that people can afford to live in. And so that'll be a primary focus of us initially. And if we have an opportunity to build, first-time homebuyer homes, we will move on that. But that our focus initially on these initial first 2 years, 3 years will be on building apartments.
And just to emphasize that point is the most important, the easiest way to build apartments is to build accessory dwelling units. Is that the structure already exists and the zoning code today already allows each residence to have one accessory dwelling unit. So that's why that program is, the initial program is that we can do that today. We don't need any changes to the zoning code. We don't need any changes to anything. We can start that program today without anything else happening. So that's why it's the first target.
And to add to that, it's also a way of leveraging existing inventory. In other words, extending what's already there. So there's not like this new development going on, but you're using existing inventory by changing that building in a way that now it can have an apartment in it, and also leveraging existing inventory by having the home share program is a way of leveraging existing inventory. So these are ways in which sort of like help ensure that there's efforts to achieve housing through that aren't always through development. But there will be a need for development, and that's why we're here, so that we can participate in that.
Question came in. Have we talked to the town about building on town-owned land? The answer is absolutely. We are in conversation with them about a property, and they are planning to use some of the American Rescue Plan money for the engineering studies for one of those properties that the town owns, which we will bid upon. We don't have any automatic right to build on it.
Right. We will bid on it, just what Judah said. That when the town owns land, they have to put a bid out for people to work or to participate in building on that land. So Habitat for Humanity is very interested in that same project. We will bid on that project. Others may also. So it'll be a bidding process, and whoever the town chooses will then build on that property.
Will the banks that work with us for this program offer lower rates for building? The question is worded as ADU homes, but I think that's a more general question, building new homes or building ADUs.
Could you repeat it a little bit? It was a little bit.
Will the banks that work with us for this program, which is the ADU program, offer lower rates? We have to work out with the town what the loan rates will be. But obviously, we don't want to be loaning at commercial rates. It needs to be lower than that.
Well, it will be. You can just be assured that the loan for the affordable ADUs will be below prime. It'll be below rate, a low interest loan. That's part of the reason why this program, the federal government made this money available, so that there could be money made available in a way that would not be dictated by the market.
Related to that, would there be income requirements for the borrower who applies for a loan to build an affordable ADU?
Well, of course there will be income requirements. Just like any other loan, there'll be criteria looked at to be determined whether or not that loan can be paid back. And so, yes, but again, because it's a small amount and it's low interest, the requirements will be much easier to be met.
And keep in mind that once they have the ADU, they'll rent that ADU out at an affordable rate, and they can use some of that income to pay back the loan.
Precisely. That's the nature of that's the thinking behind it, is that the rent of the ADU initially would then be the payment, be part of the payment for that loan. So you have a way of guaranteeing that the loan will be paid back in this manner.
Question. The Woodstock Housing Alliance needed zoning update for, the wording is land conservancy, but I think what's meant is conservation of land and incentives for long-term rental housing. Please explain why they work together and would not work separately. How do the new zoning code that some of us have worked, hope the town will adopt, feed into this process?
Well, truthfully, we don't need any zoning change to do what we're trying to do right now. So that's a misnomer. We don't need a single zoning change to do what we're planning on doing right now.
Right.
The zoning changes that the Housing Oversight Task Force is working on are actually very separate from this. And they're going to do a number of other things in addition to this. The first is they're going to allow for more housing to be able to be built by changing the zoning requirements from a fixed lot size to average lot size. They're going to allow, and then as far as conservation goes, any subdivision, any large subdivision has to put half of the land into conservation. That's a huge way of making sure that we conserve land in our town. So those things are together working to both conserve land in our town and to increase housing in our town. So if you take, I'm going to just give an example. If you take a 50-acre piece of land that someone wants to subdivide, and if it's an R5, under the current zoning code, you could build 10 houses, each house would be 5 acres. So you'd have those houses scattered around this 50 acres, each consuming 5 acres of land. With the new code, that same 50 acres, 25 acres of it have to be conserved first. And then the houses themselves can be grouped together, which reduces the footprint, the overall footprint of the property, reduces the footprint of the driveways, reduces the footprint of the road to access that, and actually helps our environment that way too. So those are things we can do under the new zoning code that we can't do today. Those are just a few examples. And there's other examples around having the ability to build or ADUs in the way that we understand. Everyone may not know, but today any property can build an ADU. But the way the code and the current code current code defines ADUs is you have to do this complicated math to know what you can build, because it's based on the size of your property, some percentage of that. Under the new zoning code, it's just up to a certain maximum. So those kinds of things simplify building, and those kinds of things help develop, help us create more affordable units in town. That's just some examples, and there's other examples that are going to come out. Speaking for the Housing Oversight Task Force, there's going to be a presentation of all that information coming soon. This is just kind of a preview of that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. One thing I wanted to add before we, let me say a little bit more. I want to really emphasize what Jeff said initially. Woodstock Housing Alliance will do and plans to do what we're doing, and there is no need. There's nothing in the current code that prevents us from doing that right now, and that's what we will be doing. So we're not changing the code so that we can operate. We can operate now, and we will operate now. And so, that has nothing to do with the new code in many respects. We can build what we will be able to build in this town. So I think that's important to understand.
We got a compliment thanking us for emphasizing affordable rentals. We're glad that you're glad that it's our first priority.
Yeah. It is our first priority. And that leads into what Jeff was talking about earlier about housing certainty. I believe it's so important that we establish housing certainty or housing security for as many people as possible in our town. That will completely transform our town. It will enable people to feel that they can do things like go out and go to the music events and go out and have, lunch with a friend, and rather than having 50% of their income going towards their rent or whatever amount that's over, that puts them at risk for being able to stay in this town. So this is such an important part of our community, that there be a tremendous amount of growth in the area of housing certainty. And we will be attempting to do this through affordable rentals that people will then be able to live in and know that they will be able to stay in that, and know that that rent will be no more than 30% of their income ever.
And I think that's really important. I'm looking at our former library director, which reminds me that we, for years, have not been able to have people who work in the library afford to live in town. And that's a problem. That's not unique to the library. That's also town employees cannot afford to live in the town. That's a big issue, and we want to address that. And that's the core of what we're trying to do here, is make sure that people who work here can live here.
Question was raised, is the building department working well with you? I think we have to say they know what we're doing and they will work with us. We're not yet building anything,
Yeah.
but they will have to give building permits and approve the designs. They will be involved from the beginning when we're actually building something.
Yeah, and the building department, like Judith is saying, we haven't worked with them at all, but we will be just like any other, property owner. We will have a site plan review if they were building something other than a single family home or a duplex, which is an as of right. We'll just go straight to the building department and do that. But we look forward to working with the planning board because I think they understand our mission.
Email for Kirk and board members. We should put them on the website. Thank you very much for raising that. There is an email address, and you will get through to someone from that email address. We don't individually all have separate email addresses.
I see. So yeah, there is one email address right now. We're a startup, so we have limited funds, and so we have the one email we have is my name, Kirk, K-I-R-K, at woodstockhousingalliance.org. And so if there's any message that you need to send to anybody, please send it to me and I will do my best to get it over to people. But in the meantime, we will be expanding those emails addresses to where others in our organization will be able to communicate as well. And I personally apologize for not having more emails available for people right now, but soon.
This is an interesting question. Land is cheaper, interest rates are lower. I think we can assume that is part of what we're doing. And together that will help to keep things affordable. What about town tax rates?
We don't have any control of that whatsoever. And so pick that up with somebody who does.
But I think the one aspect that we need to point out, and we've did it a couple of times, is we are not taking things off the tax rolls.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the property's taxes will be paid because of the house on that property. And we, as a land conservancy, will pay the property taxes of the land.
So unlike other, like Woodstock, I'm sorry, the Woodstock Land Conservancy, those go off tax rolls. The property that we own will stay in the tax rolls.
Yep.
The way it might affect it would be since the resale value of the property, if it is a for sale property as opposed to a rental, is going to be lower, that may affect the assessment. It's an interesting question.
It will affect the assessment. That's the actual, that's what we want. We want that property to be assessed and valued below market because that's what it is. And so, yes, it will have a downward pressure, if you will, on the value of that property, and therefore the taxes will be lower as well.
My cat was given the compliment.
Okay, great. All right.
Her name is Opal, by the way.
Yeah.
And someone says, if people have permanent housing, they may have time for volunteering. We devoutly hope so. That is really important. Yes. The concept of CLT is taxes are lower because it's an affordable, fixed below market rate. That is correct. I think that's all the questions. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. So let me just follow up with that, is that we will be providing the presentation to the public for people to see the presentation, and you'll be able to access that. Once we arrange for the recording of that presentation, we will be placing that out for people to access as well. If you go to our website and sign up for the newsletter, that's a way to be in touch with us. And you're welcome to reach out with the information that was provided at the end of the presentation. You can call me directly or reach out to me directly, and I'd be happy to help facilitate any questions you might have. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for your attention this evening, for your time that you've taken to listen and learn about us. And I look forward to engaging with you as a community in the future. I and everyone else on the board look forward to working with you in the future on helping to create what we are about, and that is our mission, and that is to create permanent, affordable housing for people who live here year-round. And we have some thumbs up and some applauding people there, and I'm glad you feel that way. Thank you so much for your attention this evening and your time, and look forward to seeing you around town.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Night.